This man right here is Pete Carroll, and he is legitimately one of the best coaches in the history of the National Football League. The fact that the man is about to be 74 years old and is still coaching and is widely respected today shows that. When you look at Carroll, you're looking at a guy who could very well wind up with a bust in canon depending on how his stint with the Raiders goes, as he's got 170 wins, which ranks 17th all-time in NFL history, and he's got a Super Bowl win with the Seattle Seahawks at Super Bowl 48, and a second appearance in the big game at Super Bowl 49. If we assume that Carroll wins at least 5 games with the Raiders over his career, which doesn't seem like a tall order, you're looking at a man who would become one of just 13 coaches in history to have at least 175 wins, and one of just 11 coaches to have at least 175 wins and a title under his belt. Every coach in NFL history to have 175 wins and a title is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, except for Andy Reid, who is still coaching and will get in once he's eligible, Bill Belichick, who will get in once he's eligible as maybe the greatest coach of all time, and Mike Tomlin, who is still coaching and probably will get in when the time comes. Bottom line, you're not a head coach in the NFL for 2 decades by complete accident, and Carroll is one of the best to ever do it if you look at the raw numbers. And when we talk about Carroll's record and his 170 wins, you never forget your first. And Pete Carroll's first win, which came in 1994 as a member of the New York Jets, after spending the previous 4 seasons as the defensive coordinator under Bruce Conslett, was memorable in more ways than one. Because not only did it come against a division rival, and not only did it come in his first ever game, but it came due to the help of Jamie Foxx, the comedian? Yeah, Carroll's first ever win in the NFL was particularly notable, not for what happened on the field, but rather for what happened off of it. And more than 30 years later, it deserves a deep dive today. Because what Carroll did during his first game was relatively unheard of and was completely out of left field, but he got the job done. Because this is the story behind Pete Carroll's first career win in the NFL. And what might just be, considering the circumstances, one of the craziest moments of Carroll's career that you've never heard of before. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the time that the power of comedy helped defeat the reigning 4-time AFC champion. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand the importance of the game at hand, as in this game right here. It's September 4th, 1994. It's week 1 of a brand new NFL season, and we find ourselves up in Orchard Park for this AFC East battle between the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. These were 2 teams that ended the previous year in 1993 going in completely different directions, with the Bills going all the way to the Super Bowl for the 4th straight season before losing the big game for the 4th straight season, while the Jets missed the playoffs completely after dropping their final 3 games and 4 of their final 5, completely collapsing down the stretch in a debacle that led to head coach Bruce Conslett getting relieved of his duties after 4 seasons. This meant that not only was this game a battle between a veteran and a novice, with Pete Carroll, the new head coach of the Jets, going up against future Hall of Famer Marv Levy, but this was a game that no one had the Jets winning, as the Bills were heavy favorites on their home field for obvious reasons. This was going to be a tall order for Carroll, as anytime your first game is on the road against the defending conference champions, and 4-time defending conference champions I might add, you're going to need to pull out all the stops in order to win it. And one thing that was very obvious about Carroll from the moment that he arrived in New York was the fact that he was very much a player's coach. He was extremely relaxed, and the main criticism of his time in New York was that he was a bit too relaxed. This was a guy who would give his team time off in the middle of the season to take a mental break, which was something that was not customary at all in 1994, especially in the middle of a playoff push. This was a guy who had very few rules at a time when you had coaches like Bill Belichick and Tom Coughlin who were super strict and were disciplinarians all the way. Bruce Coslet, his predecessor, was said to be a player's coach, but Carroll was that amplified to a million. One writer said on Carroll, heading into the 1994 season, Carroll might just be unlike any other coach in NFL history. In a way, it's hard to believe Carroll's coaching roots branch out from the Minnesota Vikings and the stoic Bud Grant. In terms of personality, Carroll is the exact opposite of Grant, who rarely showed emotion, much less crack a smile on the sideline. Carroll could often be seen hugging his players or chasing a play down the sidelines. He has always been very much a player's coach. And nothing, and I truly mean nothing, was about to showcase that more than what he did prior to this game against the Bills. Because the night before the game, on September 3rd, the Jets held a pregame meeting. Holding a meeting the night before the game is extremely customary, and every team does it. What the Jets did during this meeting, as you're about to find out, was not. If you've ever watched the in-season version of Hard Knocks or anything like that, you know that this meeting, usually the final meeting that a team will have before actually playing in the game, is a time for final adjustments and installations. It's a time to go over everything about what's going to happen on Sunday. It's a time for motivational speeches. And it's a time to watch films of both yourself and the opposing team to highlight the important things for Sunday and to make the necessary changes. This meeting is strictly business, and especially if it's a road game, it's a reminder that you're here on a business trip and you're here on a mission, and it's time to go out and accomplish that. But Pete Carroll took a completely different approach, and took an approach so unconventional that it deserves a deep dive all these years later. Because in preparation for this game against the Bills, he gathered his team together for that traditional pregame meeting, and he had the team watch film. However, this wasn't game film of the Bills, nor was it game film of the Jets. Instead, this was film of this man right here, Jamie Foxx. Seriously. Now, for those who don't know who Jamie Foxx is, he's a highly successful comedian and actor who's been in just about everything under the sun. And back in 1994, he was one of the biggest comedians in the world, especially after his impressions were killing it, and especially for being the breakout star on the hit Fox sitcom In Living Color, which was so big that it aired a live program at halftime of Super Bowl 26 and was successfully able to lure tens of millions of viewers away from CBS, with the ratings for the game plummeting so hard that it forced the league to pivot, take the halftime show more seriously, and get Michael Jackson the following year, changing the way that the Super Bowl halftime show was done forever. Anyways, Fox was on the rise, and being a black comedian in his 20s, he was a part of the exact same demographic that many Jets players were. So a lot of his stuff was not just funny, but highly relatable. Fox was also so big that he was on the verge of getting his own show and starring in a crap ton of highly successful movies at the box office. But Carroll brought in some footage of Fox and played it. I'm guessing this was the HBO special that he had in 1993. Jamie Foxx, straight from the foxhole. The whole team was confused, but was absolutely loving it. They were laughing along to Fox's jokes and his stand-up routine. Then, after 20 minutes of stand-up, Carroll ended the tape and told the guys, "Okay guys, see you tomorrow." And that was it. That was the entirety of the Saturday night meeting. The final meeting before the season opener. The final meeting before playing the 4-time reigning AFC champion. The final meeting before playing a team that swept you the year before in 1993. And it wasn't spent going over X's and O's and watching film and going over installations, but rather was spent watching a Jamie Foxx comedy special. That was Pete Carroll. That was who he was. He wanted to relax the guys before the first game and let them know, in a show-don't-tell moment, that not only were things going to be a little bit different under his watch, and that it was okay to let loose and have fun and not be so uptight all the time, but that we didn't need to do anything special to beat Buffalo. As long as we relax and play our game, we'll be fine. And what better way to relax than to just not talk and watch someone really funny doing stand-up comedy? As starting quarterback Boomer Esiason said afterwards, guys were laughing for 20 minutes. The guy was funny as hell. It's a tool of relaxation. Pete deserves as much credit as there could be for formulating the thinking of this team. As one writer said on this unconventional strategy, some coaches use the opportunity to deliver a fiery speech. Others talk about X's and O's. But Pete Carroll, the new coach of the Jets, did neither on the eve of his first game as an NFL head coach. Which raises the question, did this strategy work? I'm going to assume that Pete Carroll was the first coach in NFL history to spend the night before the game showing his team a stand-up comedy special, and was the first coach in NFL history to use Jamie Foxx as a motivational tool. But did it pay off? And did the Jets, as heavy underdogs, defeat the team that beat them both times last year and was the best team in the AFC? The answer to that question wasn't just yes, but rather a resounding yes. Because when the final whistle sounded, the relaxed New York Jets, in Pete Carroll's first game as head coach, showed that they were legit and showed that they could play with anyone in football. Because not only did the Jets go on the road and beat the Bills, but they absolutely dominated, taking it by a final score of 23-3. New York absolutely dominated on the ball, holding on to it for over 37 minutes. Anytime you can win the time possession battle with more than 62% of the possession, more often than not, you're going to win the game. The Jets won the turnover battle and forced 3 turnovers, and gave Jim Kelly, the future Hall of Fame quarterback for the Bills, fits under center, as he got sacked 4 times and threw no touchdowns with an interception. After the opening drive of the game, Buffalo did not score once, as while the Jets went 11 for 20 on 3rd down, constantly staying on the field, Buffalo went just 3 for 11 and only had 43 yards of rushing. For a Buffalo team that had one of the best offenses in football the year before and averaged 380 yards per game against the Jets last season, to have barely over 200 during this game right here was a shock. Both the offense and the defense played well for the Jets, as they were able to start the season off with a win for just the second time since 1988. And they didn't need film or a rah-rah speech the night before the game to do it. They just needed the comedic stylings of Jamie Foxx. Pete Carroll has won 170 games over the course of his NFL career thus far in the regular season. And of those 170, I'd wager that few were as memorable as this one right here for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's your first, and you never forget your first. But number two, the strategy employed was something so out there at the time and is out there even to this day. How many coaches are watching Jamie Foxx, or any comedian for that matter, the night before a game with their team and not talking whatsoever about the actual game at hand? That's who Pete Carroll was. He said when he took the job that he wasn't going to change and was still going to be true to himself and be the same guy he always was. And that was evident from the onset with what happened in the pregame for this game right here. Because even though it obviously didn't end well for Carroll and the Jets that season, at least to open up 1994, Pete Carroll's title was the same as Jamie Foxx's lead single off his 4th studio album, a winner. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.